Hey guys, it's Miss A again. Make another video for you to help you remember how to change decimals into percents and then also percents into decimals. All right, so let's get started. We've got a couple things we need to remember. So whenever you are converting a decimal into a percentage, what you basically have to do is you have to multiply the decimal by 100, okay? To convert a percent into a decimal, you're going to divide the percent by 100. The magic number is 100 because if you remember, percentages are always compared to 100, always. Percentage is always out of 100. So we're either going to multiply by 100 or divide by 100. But who really has time to sit there and multiply by a number like 100 or divide? So we are going to do a little shortcut, which we've done before, which is simply moving the decimal either 2 places to the right or moving it 2 places to the left. All right, so let's look at which one we do. So the first one we are looking at is changing a decimal into a percent. So if you remember, we talked about the DP method, Dr. Pepper method. So the DP method is changing a decimal into a percent. Again, like we said up here, that's multiplying by 100, or the shortcut is to simply move your decimal 2 places to the right. Okay, so decimal to a percent is moving the decimal 2 place values to the right. Because remember, Dr. Pepper is the right choice. I've said that in class several times. All right, and then we've got the opposite, which is a percent into a decimal, so PD. PD is changing percent into a decimal, and that's the opposite. You're going to move the decimal 2 times to the left, or you could divide by 100. But it's a lot easier, a lot quicker to simply move the decimal 2 times to the right or move it 2 times to the left. All right, so let's do some examples. The first thing we're going to start off with is our decimals. So our first example for this is 0.2 or 2/10. So again, we're starting with the decimal, so we're changing the decimal into percent, so we're going to move the decimal 2 place values to the right. So we start with the decimal, 0.2, and we're going to move it 2 times to the right, so 2 place values. So take your decimal, move it 1 place, 2 places to the right, and you see that we have this place value right here with no number in it. So we're going to put a placeholder of 0. So my decimal goes from 0.2. Now my decimal moved to the back, so my percentage is 20%. So all you're doing is taking the decimal, 0.2, and you're moving it 2 places to the right, once, twice. Put your placeholder because there was no number here, and you get 20%. Here's example number 2, 0.125, 125 thousandths. So we're going to convert this into a percentage as well. So the first thing we're going to do is take our decimal of 0.125, and we're going to move it 2 place values to the right because we are starting with the decimal and making it into a percent. So start here, move it 2 places to the right, once, twice, and we see our decimal actually moves in between a number, which is okay. So my percent is 12.5%. Don't forget the percent sign at the end. Because we are changing it into percent, you have to have the percent sign at the end of your number. All right, one more example for a decimal, and that number is 0.25 or 25 hundredths. All right, so again, we're going to start with the decimal, 0.25, and we're going to move it 2 place values to the right. So start here where your decimal is, move it once, twice to the right, and our decimal ends up in the back, which we don't really need because it's like at the end of the number, so we can just put 25%. All right, there we go for decimal to percent. Now let's do a couple of examples of percents into decimals. So here's our first example. We've got 3%. All right, we're going to convert the percentage into a decimal. So that's PD, percent into a decimal. So we're going to move it 2 times to the left. So we're going to start off with the number 3%. And we have to move the decimal, but as you can see here, there's no decimal for us to actually move to the left 2 times. So we have to place the decimal somewhere that's going to keep that percentage still 3%. If I put my decimal in the front, it becomes 0.3, which is 0.3%. But if I put it in the back, that doesn't change the number. Putting a decimal at the back of a whole number keeps the number at the same value. So the number is still 3. So that's where we place it. And now we can move that decimal that we just put down, we can move it 2 times to the left. So we're going to move it 1 place, 2 places, again to the left. So my decimal ends up here. And don't forget, when you have a place value with no number, you have to put a holder of 0. So my decimal is 0.03. Obviously don't need the percent anymore because we were changing it into a decimal. So 0.03, I like to put the 0 as the placeholder for my whole numbers because we don't have a whole number. So 0.03. Example 2, 225%. So again, we start off with the number 225%. Don't need the percent anymore because we're changing it into a decimal. But again, we notice that we don't have a decimal to move, so we have to place it at the back of the number because that doesn't change anything. And now we can move it 2 times to the left. Again, percent to a decimal 2 times to the left. So starting here, once, twice, we see that it ends up right here in between the 2 2's. So we have 2.25 or 2 2500ths. All you're doing is moving the decimal 2 places to the left. And here's our last example, number 3, which is 37.5%. So again, we start with the number 37.5%. I don't need the percent sign anymore, so I can cross it off. And we're going to move the decimal 2 places to the left. So this one, compared to these two, they didn't give me a decimal in the problem. There was no decimal in 3%. There's no decimal in 225%. But there is a decimal here. So we don't have to make one. We're just going to start where that decimal is. And we're going to move it 2 place values to the left. Because again, we're doing percent to a decimal. So start here. Move it once, twice. And it ends up right here in the front. So we get 0.375. And don't forget your 0 before the decimal. So 375 thousandths. All right, guys, there we go. So decimals and percents, very easy. You're either going to move the decimal 2 times to the right if you're changing a decimal into percent, or you're going to move the decimal 2 times to the left if you're changing a percent into a decimal. So make sure you write these down because it's just a visual that will help you determine or remember which way to move the decimal, left or right. All right, guys, hope this helps.